Right. Okay, the first thing to do. I have almost finished Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn. Now, I don't mean 2.1 onwards. I mean just 2.0. Just 2.0. I finally was able to sequester myself away and get a proper big play session of the game, which took me from it's the Ishgard zone.
Kurthus,
yeah. Took me through there, of course, now all the way up to basically I ran out of XP at level 47. So I did the Thingy Mire, one of the later ARR dungeons in Kurthus. Anyway,
Stone Vigil?
No, it's not Stone Vigil, it's the other one. Stone Vigil was cool.
No, the area, it's not the area. It's... Why can't I remember?
Whatever it is, I did it anyway. Did that and filled out my hunting log. Not because it was the most efficient way to get XP, but because at one point I got off the hunting log thing and I just looked at it, I'm like, this will not do. It is not okay that my log is only half full. This cannot be. Aramvale, that's it, everyone. Yeah, Aramvale. I did that. So I now have, it's the quest from, I think, Minfilia that unlocks at level 49.
Oh, and so you're actually, I actually think when you go home, next time you play FF, you will be doing Cape Westwind.
I think I'll be doing that, and then I guess it's Praetorium straight after?
Nope.
Or soon
I
after?
think there's 1 or 2 quests after that, then it's Castrum Meridianum, and then Praetorium. So you've got like 2 hours. You've got like
awesome
2 hours of dungeon content stuff.
That is a big happy for me. I'll get into why soon. But yeah, so basically, like, at least if you look at a little, list of the MSQ, I'm basically at the bottom of ARR. I'm almost there.
You've got like 4 quests left to 2.0, maybe 5.
And I'll definitely say what was interesting. So I'll go to some of my notes here. I really think the way to split this up, it's not the most fair, but in a way, I'd say pre-Garuda, post-Garuda.
Yeah.
Garuda's the 3rd primal. And, basically the story of Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, is like the calamity happened 5 years ago, where all the stuff happened. Louisoix dies? Does he die? I don't know. Maybe this is plot shit, so I'm not going to go anywhere near it. All I know is that his grandson's my mate, and his dad is in the trailer, and now I recognize him, and I've connected the dots. Anyway, right? So the world's got totally fucked by the moon and Bahamut and all of the...
Dalamud, which is the moon, and Dalamud, which is the moon.
Dalamud's the moon, and Bahamut's
the thing inside. Yeah. The dragon inside.
So like, that's not spoilers, everyone. That's like the premise. That's the premise.
Yeah,
and I know there is the
coils
is... Because I watched Asmund do the coils because he was doing that just before the Allcraft.
That's what he was.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Oh, he tried to like one last kill. We'll totally get it this time, boys.
Yeah.
No.
ran late like a...
So like that's basically your thing. And, there was this group like the Warriors of Light, who are the people who are, able to sort of help save everything, be very useful. And I believe it's kind of like the Scions are, I think they're like a mixture of the Warriors of the Light and another group that I think Louisoix was like leading or something. Anyway,
you're thinking of Archons, are you?
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But basically, anyway, you've got the Scions of the Seventh Dawn who you join because of your crystal connection. I won't get too much more into that because I want to be very, very light. But the goal of the Scions is basically to defend the realm. They are the group who can think about the big problems instead of being caught up in state level issues. The Circle of Knowing, that's it. Yeah. It's the Circle of Knowing and the Warriors of Light, I think, like sort of smang them together. Yeah. You kind of got the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. So it's basically you join them and you're going on quests and adventures to save the realm. And the realm's big threats are there's these Ascians appearing, where the Ascians are like actually, well, you find that out later. I don't know if you're supposed to know that, so I won't do it. I won't mention it. But you're dealing with these Ascians, and you're dealing with the primals, where basically the beast tribes of the world are summoning in these primals. These primals are a pretty significant problem if you're living near them. And some of what's going on with these beast tribes is being fiddled about with by the Garlean Empire, who are, I think, the big bad boys, and the people who all I know is I face off against them and Gaius in Praetorium. Now, the thing is, that core story of joining the Scions, going to fight the Primals with the Scions, you know, meeting Sid, him getting his, sort of remembering his past and all of that stuff, that is all like really strong and engaging.
Yeah.
And I was like decently gripped in parts of that. The problem is that pre-Garuda, they keep on just teasing you with the really the interesting actual thrust of the main plot, and then they send you off in random chores. Like, you know, before Garuda, you know, is this bit. So at the end of Korthus, we get the whole goal is like, we got to go to this place, and the best way to do that is this airship. So we go to get the airship. We're like, okay, cool, we got the airship. But to get through the thing and the wind and the stuff, we got to go get the crystal. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, but then the first crystal that I get, the guy who's this like professor dude is like, oh wait, you're using the crystal for that? Oh yeah, well shit. I mean, if you wanted that, then the crystal you just spent a few quests getting could be no use to you. And then you go to somewhere else. And a part of that is it Wineport or is it Aleport? Whatever it was. I'm literally, I think it's just before you go to the place with like the siren. You're legit just going back and forth and back and forth.
Yep.
And there are so many instances where it's just talk to NPC, teleport over here, go there, teleport over there, go there. And it just, ends up being so much filler and it feels really bad. Or even in Korthus. That was a really weird thing because like when it gets onto the plot with the Inquisitor, where, you know, there's a mystery to solve. That's where it's interesting. But then honestly, to me, it felt like boring sludge before that and I didn't like it. And it's interesting the bits that I had issues with are what a lot of FF players to me have referred to as the filter. And this is why here, I've just kind of, like, I didn't really finish this doc, but I have it split as like pre-Garuda, post-Garuda. Because Garuda is the third primal you go to get. And I can't really talk about, I mean, it's no surprise to anybody who plays this game that, you know, you're going to go and fight these primals, at least for the story of ARR. But what happens with the primals, I think I won't say. Yeah. But let's just say that before Garuda, you get like, you know, a nice and decently long cutscene actually with Sid and, you know, his past. And then you arrive there, you fight Garuda. And while it's not the most mechanically complex or anything fight, you know, you get there, the music starts playing. It's all pretty cool and fun. Yep. And then after Garuda, it's when the cutscene happens.
Yum.
And the post-Garuda cutscene is just all of the plot threads come together. And it finally clicks, and it finally feels like you are set on, I don't mean a linear story, but, you know, like you've emerged, at least this is how it felt to me. It felt like I had emerged from the quagmire of, you know, there being lots of good parts, but also some fillery, boring parts that show their age. Yeah. And, you know, these times where it clearly feels like they've tried to give me the fastest path through all of this content because, you know, that thing and maybe 1 or 2 years ago, they cut down the MSQ size and all of that. But this merge, they finally felt like, oh, fuck, I'm playing a linear campaign in an RPG and I am super invested now. Because at that point where it hits post-Garuda and post-Garuda, the voice acting kicks in. Now, voice acting. Alphino? Alphino, right.
Alphino Leveler.
So, Alphino, I think his voice actor is grand in... I think the direction's maybe not perfect,
performance isn't stellar, but I think that's Sam Riegel. I think it is.
So it's like, I think he's grand. The Lalafell, the like older sounding Lalafell's also, I think pretty strong.
Papalimo.
But yeah, it's that weird thing. Even though the voice acting isn't always great and is like a little bit rough, especially Minfilia, I think. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's the actor's fault. I think it's direction for Minfilia. But the voice acting kicks in. The story is it's very well motivated. The plot after Garuda because of what happens just after you fight Titan. You guys will know. You know, it's just that thing. I'm so sensitive to spoilers for this game, especially.
That's the correct way to be.
But it feels really well motivated. And basically, you know, you're dealing with the primals, and now it's time for really dealing with the Garlean Empire stuff. And just the character stuff feels really well motivated, especially because of what happened just after Titan. And it's like the budget feels like it's increased.
I think it might literally have something like that, but I get what you mean.
There's way more time and effort, it feels like, it's been put into things. And I mean, look, a part of this is because I was playing on a controller. and I wasn't super used to it, so I wasn't doing great, and I'm sure my gear wasn't optimal. But there was a few of the duties where I'm like, oh, I like died the first time, then it offered me an easy mode, and I'm like, I'm not fucking taking that. And then I go back in and I actually properly focus and do it. I'm like, oh, that felt a bit more engaging than I'm used to from doing this sort of thing in an MMO.
A bit more like a fucking video game.
It felt like video games, because whenever I did what I do in WoW, which, in this case was just, get my, the gauge that gives you the faster attacks and everything, and the Huton, yeah. I put up that, and then I just, do the fire AoE and the death blossoms to try to just max fucking giga destroy everything, and I die.
Yep.
And I am not used to that. And then I'm like, oh, whoa, wait, I actually have to think about this. And then it was, I was doing one, and Sid died because I wasn't paying attention to his health, and I wasn't dealing with the. I'm like, oh wait, oh yeah, shit, and then I was like, okay, hang on a second, you are deathly tired. You focus, and I did, and I was like, it was more engaging. Those little duties. Yeah. It was more engaging, and the way that, let's just say there's a bit where you're sort of infiltrating a Guardian base for a well-motivated goal for your character.
Yep.
And it's just nice how you're going from like cutscene into duty into running about the place. It feels way more immersive. It felt way more immersive, way more high budget, and it was just really, really well motivated. And I don't really know what else to say other than now that it feels like the Scions have all clicked together, and I can see the path forward in all of these games. Yeah. Whereas it's very hard to see that at the very start of the game, because it really does start you at the basics.
Yep.
It's now got to the stage where it has the click. It's like there's multiple times where the game clicks, but this is like the big click, which sort of makes sense because that's what people have told me.
Yeah. Also,
I'm sure Praetorium has got. Look, I'm excited to do Praetorium because I care about the narrative stuff, and like I think I'm going to enjoy not the bosses as like gameplay, but I think I'm going to enjoy just the bosses and cutscenes. I'm going to do a little bit of pre-research on it, just so I know the right way to play it, because that is a part of the roulette that a bunch of max level players do, and they optimize the fuck out of their runs. So I'm pretty sure they just run through trash, because when you reach the next boss and force the cutscene, the trash like despawns or something. So I need to play that right so I don't get, confused and lost and stuff.
Or just, go with people. Literally ask like 2 or 3 of us to go, and then especially if there's 2 tanks, then we can control the pace, which will still go fast, but you'll know. And you'll just people stopping.
Follow people will be fine. Yeah, so in that case it'll be fine. And that's like my sort of big old fun experience with with MSQ and Final Fantasy XIV. I am not done yet. There's about 4 more quests to go, but I think would you agree that it's that post Garuda experience that then is how you understand how the rest of the MSQ stuff's really, really, really good?
Yeah. So what they tend to try to do is, like, it's a JRPG. They follow, like, which is interesting because I think that FF14 does a lot of stuff that's really unique and really, really sound, but most of it's the very foundation of good JRPG. Especially after playing the early Final Fantasies because of the pixel remaster, I'm like, oh, I can see how you conceptually it's like they didn't fucking try. Conceptually it's like they went, Final Fantasies early ones, how did they go? Structure boiled down, this is the structure we'll run with, and they filled in all the gaps, and it just works because it's that same energy at the end of every major patch, at the end of every expansion. You can feel the way you do when a JRPG is coming to a close. You're in the last 20%, and you're like, oh fuck, I've met everyone. We now have this massive thing looming on the horizon that we have to deal with. Let's go do it. And you're sitting there, you're like, I've mostly mastered my gameplay. You think a couple hours ago, or you think a couple weeks back, and you're like, holy fuck, like, thinking where you started to where you got now feels so impossible because the journey's been so long and so massive, but you've done it a step at a time. And now they've got that last stretch of just, right, race to the finish. You're in for a narrative climax. which is actually one hell of a climax in a couple of ways. There's one person who said when there's a song called The Maker's Ruin, when that plays, it is actually like, it's a kind of moment where you're like, fuck me, this game's amazing. Imagine when you first fight a primal and the music kicks in, but that times 10. It's fucking fantastic. But it's like basically they just it's the end of the MSQ, so you've done all of the groundwork to have the final experience. And they do that, but iterated on and faster every time. Where you go to a place, you learn about the place, you get the people, learn everything, go on, finished. Obviously the stories are all very different. But it's that fundamental, here's a good JRPG story. Or what you probably should say, here's a good story. It's just that JRPGs seem to do them best overall because of the how they do the cast of characters and stuff. And that's what it does really fucking well.
Yeah, and that's what I've experienced. So
Yep.
Yeah, gonna be good. It's funny. It's like every time I progress a bit more, I can think about some of the bits from the cinematic trailers. I'm like, oh wait, I kind of know who that person is now, or I sort of understand that thing. So yeah, that's mostly that. There's not a great deal else to talk about for this in the MSQ without spoilers. Basically, had a blast. I think definitely got the bit where you're gripped in this story. Multiple people told me that it's like getting to Garuda is the filter, and I totally get. I get why people said that. I get the issues up to there, and I totally get why you get very excited in that Garuda and post-Garuda era. I think it would be interesting if they could cut down MSQ maybe a little, not cut down, but just if there would be a way to remove some of the unwanted texture, you could say. Now it is tricky because some of that does also do some world building, but certainly every FF player I've seen has said that it's a game that does put its worst foot forward in a way.
For sure. Really.
But fucking hell yeah, you hit this and you're like, oh yeah, I really, it's not just I can see it and I can see the good bits. It's like, I get it.
Yeah.
So
once you feel it, you're like, fucking hell, how did I bother doing this? And then you get to the end, you're like, oh right, it was worth it. It was worth it's worth every second.
Yeah.
But it's weird because there's a lot of stuff they do that's like world building that you don't really realize. And I think a lot of it's, especially with how kind of deep and not really deep or particularly convoluted, but with how the magic system works and how they constantly talk about ether, they constantly talk about crystals. I feel like there's a because of that specific bit as well, where you are dealing with these problems and you are listening to science engineer man say, well, here's a science engineer problem, we need to science engineer it. And you're like, well, what the fuck? I'm just the warrior of light. What am I doing? Can I just wait for all you brain people to figure it out? And it's like, sorry, we need to solve brain problem. Can you go muscle it out? And you're like, okay, fine, I'll go do it. But by process of almost as osmosis, by the time you're done all that, you kind of go, oh yeah, I have a really profound understanding of how all of the systems in this work.
Yeah, it does build up.
Yeah, and then they constantly use those stuff again and again and again. So whenever, you get to significantly later on, like in Shadowbringers a little bit in Stormblood, where they start to talk about really deep foundational stuff, you have all of the knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's like, even cutting out things like, here's 20 minutes of running back and forth about crystals, they could cut that out, but then there's a chance that someone comes back and goes, what's all this talk about ether? Because if you don't understand, it's almost in the way people understand World of Warcraft cosmology, but that's not relevant to the game understanding very much.
Yeah, I guess it's not the info that's communicated. I guess I just wonder what would happen if they, as a part of a feature at some point, retackled that MSQ, brought it up to date a little bit more to help with the new player experience. I say that I've had overall a great time and a super great time post Garuda, and I am very fired up to hit what people say is sort of the next filter in the ARR patch quests. But no, I get it now, and I'm definitely, fuck yeah, Heaven's Ward, let's bring this shit. I just know that it's probably, ARR MSQ is probably not their best story compared to the expansions. But it would be cool if they were able to tell the story of it in a maybe a slightly more modern way.
Yeah.
But I just say that in the context of it would be useful for their new player experience and just how successful their sales funnel is, for sure.
Yeah.
But that said, they don't massively need that because the entire community says, trust us, it's worth it.
Yeah.
You know, and I would agree with those people. It definitely is worth it. And
Yep,
it's going to be
absolutely.
exciting as we move on.